and welcome to UK Versus. Today we have a very special guest. We are joined by the head of Organised Play, Josh Massey, and as always, I am joined by Richard, who I've discovered it's very easy to find a disappointed look in his face during streams for thumbnails. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing great. I hope you find a very disappointed looking face for me as well for the thumbnail.
Would you like to make one now for the thumbnail? Perfect.
I don't know. That's as disappointed as I get.
Feel free to send me a headshot as well. I've got one from Bill and from Matt and from Guile because for my memes. So feel free to send me a headshot for them as well. But we're here to talk about Organised Play 2025. You did an amazing video, a very cool article, and you've been very active in the Discord answering questions as well. But my immediate thought was, well, the information's out there. Let's see if people want to get to know Josh in a different way.
Sounds great.
So before we get started, would you like to talk about your history with card games, some of the other card games you've been integral in creating and organizing, and a little bit just more about yourself?
Yeah, let's do it. So I was born on a cold winter night back in no, not that far back. Okay,
you can go that far back. No. If you want to go that far back. I mean, this is your interview.
Nobody wants.
No, Levi. This is all about you.
That's fair, but nobody wants to know that much about me, let's be honest. But no, I have been doing the organized play thing for quite some time now. I'm going on 10 years doing it professionally. Prior to that, I used to run events at stores. I was never a store employee, but I was the guy that would always run their tournaments. I was their TO, and I was putting on, weekly events and whatnot for them. So overall, I've been doing OP for about 15 years. Like I said, professionally for 10. I started at the Pokemon Company International out in Seattle as my first actual in-company gig doing organized play. Had a great time out there, and then made the change to Fantasy Flight Games just about 5.5, 6 years ago now. I was there the entire time before moving over here, and got to work on a bunch of different games, card games, miniatures games, bunch of different things. Got to see all aspects of tournament play and organized play. And it has led me to this point, seeing what works in organized play structures, what doesn't work, and coming up with the plan that we, just recently announced for everyone. And other than that, I like to go for long walks on the beach, and I'm a gamer of all sorts. I have board games that I play with my kids, up to the ones that, take 8 to 12 hours to play, card games, video games. I love gaming.
I guess my question would be sort of what got you onto organized players, like a career path? Like, obviously it's quite a very niche thing to get into, right? So I guess what pushed you down that route?
Happenstance and luck. Really? I mean, again, it's something that I love. I'm a gamer. I love gaming. And it was 1 year I was playing the video game, the Pokemon video game, back in 2013, 14, somewhere around there. And I went to a New Year's Day tournament. At that tournament, I played for 2 rounds. I was 2-0. And I was watching the tournament organizer, who is one of my favorite human beings in this world, love her to death. But she was floundering when it came to the video game. She was much more focused on the card game side of the tournament, and she knew that. She didn't know the video game as well. So after 2 rounds, I approached her and I just said, hey, if you want me to just kind of take over here, I'll drop and run the tournament for you. So she didn't know me at all. This was the first time we had ever met. And she's like, all right, do it. So I ended up dropping from the event. I helped her run it. Just a month later, after, talking to her back and forth for that month, she asked if I would be her head judge for the state championships for the Pokemon video game. And from there, I volunteered and worked at the national tournament for the video game. I worked at the world championship, and then just a few months later got the job offer. So everything just kind of fell into place. I met the right people at the right time, and it just kind of worked out.
So basically, you got an opportunity and you just made the most of it.
Yep, I jumped on it.
I mean, as gamers ourselves, we can all fully understand taking advantage of a very lucky situation because it happened to all of us.
Yep.
So you've been working 15 years in organized play. What brought you to UVS Games? And because it's not the biggest game, it's not the biggest company, and with your level of experience and some of the companies you work for, you could possibly be anywhere.
That's true. That's true. I honestly, a lot of it was Paul. Let's be honest. Paul is a salesman. He knows what he's doing. But no, I mean, for those that know of my time at FFG and what I was doing over there, I was running the OP for them at the end, and it was not an easy decision with a new game launching and something I had been working on for years. Like it was a tough choice to make, but after talking to Paul, after talking to the rest of the leadership and the team that I'm on now, I saw some really cool opportunity and potential and room to help something else grow, where I felt like what I had been working on was stable and ready to, run on its own. This was, I don't want to say a new challenge because it's not challenging, but it was a new road, just a side street to take and, see where we can go from here.
So you came into UVS and you hit the ground essentially running because all love to Alex, aka Jelly, and we wish him all the best. But he was doing everything by himself. And what were your initial thoughts when you saw the current organized play plan and Alex's workload without going into things you can't tell us?
Right, and I can't get into a ton of details, but I mean, what I can say is it was definitely a program built by someone who loves the game, which Jelly loves the game. I shouldn't say loved. But yeah, he's a fan of the game. He wanted to build something that he would want to play in. And I think for what he was doing and the amount of time and effort and energy he had to do it, because it wasn't just OP. And like myself and Levi, we're not just doing OP, we're helping in other areas as well. Because we are a smaller company and there's a lot of feedback that can come from all sides. But yeah, it was a program that just needed to be opened up a little bit more, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that with the questions you guys have sent me. But it needed to be opened up a little bit more because I think you guys are great. I think our competitive players are great. I'm sure most of the people watching this are competitive players, but personally, I don't want to see the same 100 people every single time I go to an event sitting across the table from me. I want to see new blood, and that was kind of the idea with what the program was to what the program is going to be, is trying to find some of that new blood, get people excited to try out an event, and then continue to grow and become competitive players. So, program was fine, but I think that it needed just a little bit of love in pulling new players in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We haven't before you just jump on that, Richard, we have a comment in the chat saying that someone has a lot more respect for you after seeing your glorious beard.
Sweet. I love whoever that is. Thank you.
That is my LGS owner.
Nice.
So what I was going to say about that, I guess, like, organized play, is a key part of a game, and fundamentally, like, it's a marketing expense, right? And it should be a way of sort of another layer of your game of selling that game to players and getting them in and getting them invested. So not only can they, play at their kitchen table with their friends, but they can also have this kind of community and, the road to sort of the more competitive stuff, or like the lower level, more casual sort of organized play stuff. And that's sort of what it's mainly there for, right? It's to draw people into your game. It shouldn't ever be focused on the one percenters that are always gunning for that top spot. It should be there to cater for both.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Reagan's a great example of the fact that not everyone who qualifies for Worlds is going to win it, and he got through on the last chance qualifiers and then went on to win the entire event. So the new system that's coming into place is just basically going, well, now everyone who can make it to Worlds has a chance of walking away with it. Which is but we'll get more into that. Before we crack on with the questions on the list, my final question on this is, have you already started planning your character card that you'll be getting in about 8 months?
I have not yet. I've still got another half year before I even need to think about that. It will, whatever the card text is, I will make sure that the focus is on the beard, though.
Beard counters, let's go.
Let's do it.
So
I guess in terms of the questions, just looking through what we wanted to talk about, I think there's probably 3 main sections, so we can sort of kind of discuss it in those. So, like, I guess the first one, probably the shortest one, would be the plans for the rest of the year, 2024. And then we can look at sort of from 2025, you've then got the sort of competitive ladder and the sort of the road to Worlds. And then probably I think the most important part of it is the local stuff, the more LGS-based part of it. So I think that's kind of, to me, how the sort of 3 sections are split out.
So
yeah, sounds great.
The only main question I had about OP for the rest of the year is we know how we get to Worlds now, but we haven't really been told what we're fighting for at Worlds, and it is the mountain that we're all trying to get to. Do you know if and when we're going to get more information about what we're going to see this year at Worlds before we see all the lovely, shiny new event stuff that you're going to be bringing in next year?
Yeah, so as soon as we can. This year is a little bit different than previous years because we're not the My Hero Academia focused game anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got a lot more IPs involved, which working with different IPs means different approval levels and different approval timelines and things of those sorts. So with us still releasing new IPs this year and wanting to include as many of the IPs from this year as we can at Worlds, it's taking a little bit longer than I would like, but I will tell you as soon as possible. And one of the things that we are looking into doing is revealing pricing in waves, because there are aspects of it that are already approved and ready to go. It's just there are some other things that are going to lag behind just because approval processes for unreleased cards haven't necessarily happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one of the it's a blessing and a curse, right? With universities, is you do get to play with all these really cool IPs and have all these really cool cards fighting each other, but then you've got the players that really see it. But obviously, from the company side, it's the constant tug of war between 17 different IP owners and approval process and all that. Like, just putting out having a poster, right? A University Card Game World with, let's say, the below deck stuff on it, right? That's got to go through Paramount, or doing the same thing with Attack on Titan. That's got to go through Kodansha, right? You're obviously dealing with all these things. So yeah, I can appreciate the how difficult it can be.
The way I justify it in my head with stuff like that is I remember what happened with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where that was the first time you got like Donald Duck and Daffy Duck together, and they were only able to do it because they all agreed that everyone gets the same amount of screen time. So when it comes to advertising and waves and stuff like that, it's about making sure that, to put it in the lower decks terms that we're going to be getting, as long as nobody's happy, you have a compromise.
Right, but we don't want that. We want everybody happy with our compromises.
I just wanted to use the lower decks quote, in all honesty.
Yep. No, that's I get it. But yeah, we will be announcing them as soon as we can. But I'm trying to make sure that we hit things in the right order as well. So obviously we're going to talk about this year's nationals before we get too deep into what Worlds looks like. So
yeah. I guess that is also, it's a slight wrinkle, I guess, this year. Obviously, we don't know schedules for next year. We can do that later. But obviously, with nationals and Worlds being so very close, especially for those that sort of have to think about international travel, it's going to be a bit of a pain, I think.
Yep.
So I guess, it's one of those things that the more info people can find out ahead of time, the easier that becomes, especially, like, say, for, not only for our CU guys, but especially for the OCE guys, you have to travel a lot further than we do.
Yeah. Yep. So as soon as possible. That's what I can say.
Cool.
Anything else from you, Richard, about this year's OP?
No, I don't think so. Like I say, we've got stuff coming up. I think the Tekken promos for local championship organised play are really, really cool. And hopefully, for the rest of the seasons that we've got for the rest of this year, we've got more of that sort of stuff coming. Again, obviously you're not going to be able to tell us what they are, but hopefully that's a training that can continue for that local play for 2024.
Yeah, what I can say about 2024 local play, and is something that you may have noticed if you looked at the 2024 Worlds article and then the 2025 article that we just released, there was literally no mention of pre-releases and very little about what, other than points that get you into other events, very little regarding the local championships and local qualifiers. For next year, OP is going to be a lot more involved in those decisions. So like the Tekken promos you were just talking about, obviously I knew that they were coming, but that wasn't an OP decision.
Yeah.
Where next year that will be more of not really our decision, but we will be more involved in how all of that plays out and what happens and when.
Cool. I mean, I know from personal experience that you're very hands-on with stars, because I've got my friend Rob who's just opened a store with some friends, and you've been very hands-on, very involved, and he's loved getting phone calls from you in the morning just because of how good your attitude is. It's sort of infectious. So he made sure that I have to be very nice to you, and that he always wants to say that he really loves and respects you for how good you were with the opening of the Stronghold in Southampton.
That might be the other Josh at the company.
Fair enough. Who knows?
I think that's the other Josh.
He said
we do have Josh Alexander on the LGS team, and I know you messaged me about this, and I was a little bit confused, but like I talked to a lot of people, but it's probably Josh Alexander, who is way cooler than me and a way nicer person than me.
But does he have the beard?
No.
See?
No. That's the only thing that I have on him.
Yeah, he's dead to me now. So we do have a quick question from chat on 2024. So I guess just on that chat, obviously, if you want to fire questions out, we'll fit them in as and when makes sense, and obviously if they're reasonable. So we've got Ross Toss asking, will Season 4 LQs and LCSs give any points towards Worlds qualifications for this year?
This year. So that was never part of the plan for this year. I know I mentioned it on Discord. I'm not going to get into all the details now, but with the varying point structures between this year and next year, with this year being a thing that is essentially going away, and next year being the plan that we're going to continue to use for years to come, there will be some discussion, and we will make you all very aware of what those points will look like and how they will be utilized, if they will be utilized.
So, Rostos, TBC, watch this space.
As soon as they can't say anything, they will say something, is the best.
Exactly.
So, moving on to next year and the article and all the changes that are coming through. For the last 3 years, Worlds has had this limited threshold of invites or the last chance qualifier to fill up limited spaces. You've opened it up to essentially everyone who can meet a minimum threshold. What was the thought process of actually going from this very restrictive event to a more open-ended, bring everyone in we can sort of event?
So, I mean, the main reason is I want the World Championship to be more of, I guess, a spectacle. I want it to be more of an exciting event. I want somebody to walk through the door just because they love Attack on Titan or Star Trek or Tekken or whatever, right? I want people to just show up, because I apologize for that if you could hear that, but I want people to show up just because they love the game or the IPs, and I want them to be able to get involved. That is one aspect of it. To open up the event and have something cool and exciting for people to just engage with on the side, but then have a 32 or 64 player tiny tournament happening at the same time, that just doesn't feel right. So I want people to be able to come and play and engage with the game that they love. And maybe some people can only attend 1 or 2 regionals a year. Maybe no regionals, and all of their points come from their local championships next year, right? I still want them to have an exciting event to plan on attending, as long as they do meet that minimum threshold. And then for players that, don't make it past day 1, or, end up dropping because they just want to do other stuff. I want to have them in a large venue where we can run side events and we can have other cool things for them to interact with throughout the weekend. And that doesn't work in a tiny hotel ballroom built for 64 players.
Yeah, and I guess also you want people going to Worlds that maybe haven't even hit that threshold or haven't even tried, or they just want to go to be part of Worlds, right, and just be at the event.
Oh,
exactly, and that's hard to do now.
Yeah, my partner was thinking of going to Worlds last year just to meet Zena Robinson because they've been trying to meet Zena Robinson for years.
Yeah.
So the point threshold for 2025 is very similar to what we've kind of got in a minute. Once a player achieves the point threshold, what's going to be their incentive to keep going to events, keep earning points? Because we've got like Tim Keefe at the minute who's not going to Atlanta, we found out, because he doesn't want to meme around anymore and he's got his world invite already.
Right. So that's why there are essentially 3 different invite thresholds, right? There's the day 1 invite. So once you have your points, if you're good with that, that's okay. Mm-hmm. You can be done playing competitively. You can go to competitive events if you still want and run whatever decks you want, not caring about points. But that day 2 invitation might be important enough for people so that they can relax on that first day and then really grind it out on day 2 and 3. And there's the paid trip threshold, right? So for those players that maybe, they can only attend 2 or 3 events a year because of budget or whatever, they go and do as well as they can at those and hope that we pay for them to go to the big event of the year. So there's still a reason to play for the players that want to. But again, like I mentioned this earlier, we have had so much focus for the last few years of OP on our competitive players and only our competitive players. This structure is designed for that person that's just kind of dabbling and maybe wants to try out the competitive scene to be able to get that Worlds invite and be like, okay, cool. I've engaged more with this game than I've ever engaged with it before. I've got my invite. I'm okay to take a 2-month, 3-month break, and we're okay with that too, right? So that's why this exists the way that it does. It still gives people that want that next level of invite a reason to play, but not a requirement to continue playing.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong here. My understanding of like the 3rd threshold, it's more of a top X players rather than you get over X barrier. So for someone like Tim, he's still going to want to play at all the rest of the events and to keep going to try and retain in those top spots to get that top level and get in that invite. So want to continue grinding if he's if he wants to play, go down that competitive route. And so there's that incentive for him who wants to be at that competitive level, whereas someone might be like, oh, I got my invite, I'm good, I can go to Worlds, bang in. So, you've got the sort of the different carrots for the different level of people and, however much carrot they want to consume.
Yeah, carrots are delicious, so let's eat all of them.
So it's going to jump a little bit ahead in our list of questions, but we have had a chat from Common Meeple, which is asking, is there going to be like a public leaderboard of the points so people can see how well they're doing if they're actually within the top X?
So this is the easiest question you guys had sent me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be. I was actually just talking about it again in a meeting today with the group that we work with to do all of our tournament software and everything. And yeah, we'll be up and running easily for next year.
I just realized there's another half to that question. Yeah, there's another half to the question as well. It's talking about essentially an issue for Richard and ourselves. We live in an area that doesn't have many stars, whereas if you look at like the northeast of England, which has a lot of stars, is there going to be a cap on events like points that can be earned in a season? Are they just going to inherently have a little bit more of an advantage because they've got more stars and can do more local events? And will the big events like regionals offer a larger amount of points that kind of dwarfs locals so that you're more incentivized to win those rather than just grinding all your locals?
There is going to be a pretty drastic difference between the 2 tiers of events. Regionals are going to be worth a lot more points. The winner of that is going to earn enough points. I can't remember if I've said this already. Hopefully I have. If not, whatever. This is for you guys. But the winner of a regional will automatically get enough points for that day 2 invitation.
Oh, nice.
Right? To be able to reach that many points playing at the local level, going to be difficult, nigh impossible, without winning every single event and having multiple events in your area running throughout the year.
You say that, but I think Mike Hardiman is currently just under 100 points under the current system, which is a very big achievement for if you look at the rest of the UK points. And he hasn't won a regionals; he's only top cut in the first one.
Yeah. And I mean, I think my perspective on it is sometimes, as a player, maybe you don't have the opportunity, you don't have as many locals as some players, and they do more traveling and grind more points, but they sort of earn them because they do the grinding. And from the company perspective, that they sort of probably want people going out and visiting all these different stores and supporting all these different stores with all their OP stuff. So that's probably a good thing. And as long as it's not, as long as, where you're saying you're keeping the regionals being a lot more weightier than someone grinding locally, I think is fine. And if you aren't an area that has access to it, it's unfortunate, but it still should be a system that supports people wanting to go and attend as many LGSs as possible, because that's the ultimate aim for the system, right?
Yep, absolutely.
You can imagine there's a point of diminishing return where the flights to Worlds are going to be cheaper than how much you're spending traveling around taking part in all the events.
Yeah, but you get to play in the events. So that's
right. You get to hang out with friends, you get to win some cool promo cards and some other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You get to play the game.
I mean, right. This next question is probably just going to be we'll tell you when we can, but we'll get out of there. How many points are required for day 1?
Well, we'll tell you that later. We do have a good idea of what that's going to look like. Nothing is set in stone yet. If you read through the article, you'll have a good idea what our plan is. We have been crunching numbers and things look the way we want them to at this point, but we still need to just verify some things, because I love all of you and I want you all to show up at Worlds, but at the same time, we don't want to miscalculate and invite 12,000 people to Worlds because it's too easy to get in.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a balancing act. I feel like we're in a really good spot though, and that those numbers will be revealed soon. Again, the focus is going to be the remainder of 2024 before we get into more detail about 2025. But with 2025, we are going to be talking about the overview article that we did. We're going to be talking about each piece of that individually in its own article, hopefully videos, as long as Levi and I can hang out and sit in a room together like we did for this last one. So we're going to be giving you more details on all of that soon, but following that timeline that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, I mean, I guess on that, in terms of the article stuff, just want to say, the text format plus the explanatory video, great. Every article should be that, if obviously, if possible. Just because I think having the two, some people would like to read, some people just want to watch the video, some people want to enjoy both. I think having that as your option to get these important bits of information out.
Yeah,
perfect.
I did enjoy the video because I could just sit and listen to it while I was editing both videos. Where with the article, I've got to sit down, read it, process it, reread it. But moving on to the next question, under the current system, and we know some people are planning to do this, you can travel to different regions and get invites to Worlds through that region. How is the point system going to account for where you earn the points, and how is that going to work with your overall total for getting into Worlds?
Right. So it is a little bit of what has already been said. If somebody from the US goes to a UK event and wins it, they're going to get their points. They're going to get the points from that event because they attended the event and they did well, right? But we mentioned this in the article. I think we talked about it a little bit in the video too, but I'll touch on it a little bit more here. Is each region is going to have a slightly different point threshold, because we know there are just going to be more events in the US. We have more LGSs that run events. We have a larger player base. So there will just be more things happening here. So US players will have to earn more points than you will, right? So if a US player comes and wins one of your regionals, they will get their points for winning the regional. They'll qualify for day 2, but everybody else at the event will be getting the same number of points that you would get from a US regional, and your invite threshold will be lower. I know that some people will want to travel to events, and I didn't want to shoo them away from doing that. I didn't want to scare them away from doing that, because that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that it is. If we have somebody that hits every single event of the year, that's really cool. And that's somebody we want to talk to and talk about when we're at events. But we know that it will happen. But we wanted to make sure that it was still at least somewhat easier for the regions that don't have as many players or as many events, in some cases, be able to earn their invitation still.
Will points be locked to their region? Because you're saying that the events like NA will gift more points for attending and doing well. So I could go to, say, a Gen Con regional, and if I do well, I could walk away with almost the same number of points as winning a regional in the UK.
So points will be the same across the board. It's how many points you need to qualify. So being in the US, if I were a player, which I can't be because my own rules say I can't be, if I were a competitive player, though, I would need to earn this many points. You will need to earn this many points. Oceania is even smaller and has fewer events. They'll need to earn this many points, right? So the points will be the same across the board as to what they award. So every regional will give the same number of points, period. It's just how many points you need to earn your invite to Worlds. And then we haven't really touched on this too heavily, but when it comes to the invites and the paid invites, there will be a region-based invite structure for that. So you're not going to necessarily be just competing against players in the US who have more events and potentially more points because they have more access, right? So there will be invites per region.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. So if I went to, say, an event in the US, did quite well, walked away with a lot of points, would that count towards, say, like US regional paid invite, or would those translate to my EU points, and I can just go, okay, I've got a lot of points from that event, I just need to keep topping them up to get my paid flight.
Got it. I see what you're saying. It counts for you personally,
okay,
not the event you attended. Your points are based on you, where you live, where you're located. And if we find out that one of our US players says that they're from Australia, we're going to have words with them, because that's, lying in their UGN account. And we don't want that.
I'm just thinking we're now going to see the reverse issue of people who can't afford it going to America to rack up points and then coming back rather than people from. I think that's really cool, because encouraging travel is very good. And I already know some people are kind of planning to go to Gen Con anyway, because we all assume that Gen Con is going to be TMNT promos because of how the dates line up. But we're not going to ask you about that, because we know that's a can't talk about it situation.
Oh, you ask all you want. You won't get any answers out of me.
That is more than fair.
So just a couple of questions from chat. So just, I guess, circling slightly back around to the leaderboard stuff.
Yeah.
Leaderboard for this year?
That is the thing I'm crossing my fingers for. I have asked for it by a specific date. I'm not going to give you the date now, but that date would account for this year, yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then that one we're going to cover later. Okay, so I mean, just see Doggy is asking, what if a lot of players from NHL would stay to any event and take all the top positions? Well, they've paid for. I mean, I guess I would answer that of they've paid their flights and hotels, and they've played the game really well and earned them.
The best way to look at it is
what it is.
Grading on a curve. So if 20 NA players come here and take all our top spots at regionals, that means that the required amount of points we need to be top in the region and get the paid flights drops dramatically, because one event, no EU player did well enough to get all the points. So collectively, our average points need to get the paid invite drops.
So I see where your mind is at with that, but I do want to clarify, at the beginning of the season, you will know what your point threshold is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We will only adjust it during the year in the case that we absolutely need to, because something like that happens.
Yeah.
But I don't foresee that happening.
No, of course.
So the idea is we announce everything at the beginning of the year. You know what you need to earn, and maybe a player from Oceania comes and takes your champion, points at one of your regionals. Those are just points that they have earned and are not being awarded to a player that's in the UK.
I'm talking like the long term for the year. So like when it comes to like the top 8, 16 players that are going to be paid to go out, that kind of drops dramatically if nobody tops an event, because we're all in the same boat. Whereas if one person topped that event, they're in a significantly stronger position.
But they earn it, right? So
yeah. But anyway, seeing as we're just talking about that. Where are we up to here?
Yeah, so I just going through our list of questions. I guess obviously we'll ask the question: how many players from each region are going to be getting, that top X players in that third tier? I'll ask the question so you can say we can't say yet.
That is another one of the things that will be coming in future articles and video announcements.
We can assume it's an even number.
Mm-hmm.
But so
who knows? I'm out of control. I'm a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing as you've
I'm going to go with 17 people just to throw everything off.
16 and a half. I will we'll let you figure out how you're going to do a half. Seeing as you brought up a little bit a while ago, you're going to be having a little bit more influence over the prizes and the promos for organized play. That has been one of the biggest complaints by the community, that regionals pricing is a bit lackluster. Can you tell us how it's going to improve in some way, and if we're going to see more desirable pricing for regionals?
So, yes, there will be more desirable pricing. We're not just going to be doing promo cards. We'll talk about prize wall in just a second, because that is definitely part of this as well. But we are going to be giving you more for attending, more for doing well, just more for engaging with the game. Because we want you to want to come, and we want you to feel that there's value in coming. But when it comes to promo cards, I do want to talk about this. I'm not going to get too in the weeds on it, but having come from a couple other companies that do the same kind of thing, it is difficult to always have like hard-hitting, amazing promos, because no matter which company I've been with, you have a group of testers. That group of testers is a drop in the bucket compared to the number of people that actually play the game when a set is released. So there are things and there are cards that we think are great internally because they've performed better than anything else in testing. But when the greater community gets it, they're like, oh, actually, we found this combo that you never even thought of because you weren't looking at this card from this set that was 4 sets ago and how it, ties into this. Our devs are amazing, but they're not perfect. They don't remember every card that we've ever released from the beginning of time. So that is a thing that I will say, like, we are going to do our best to try to give you bangers every single time. But that's not always going to be the case, just because it's impossible to predict when we're as far ahead in planning as we are. Yeah. Right? If we were waiting until a set came out to say, these are our top performing cards in decks, do that for the regional, that would be wonderful. But then we're giving you that card 2 sets later because it takes that long for approval and design and graphic design, right? Like the creative aspect of it. So like, we can't always do that. We want to give you cards that are relevant and new and exciting, and we're going to do our best to give you cards that are good and relevant for tournament play and competitive play as well.
Yeah, the worst thing you want to do is get this really cool card, make a promo for it, get it out there, and then a couple of weeks later it gets banned.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the other part of it, right? If you aim too high and pick like the very best cards of a set that you're certainly going to be bangers, they might end up being so good they get banned, and like that's all of a sudden just ruined that promo for you, right? So it's
exactly,
you almost want to aim for that top 75% or something, which is really hard to do when you're working 6 months in advance before the card's even been released. And you have a vague idea of what the meta might look like, but actually it's always going to be radically different because, thousands of people versus 10 people is huge, right?
Yeah. But going back to the prize wall thing that I mentioned earlier, part of what we're going to be doing for regionals next year, I know we're going to talk more about the prize wall in a little bit, but just a little taste of it. For attending events, you're going to be getting some amount of prize wall tickets just for attending. More based on how well you do in the main event, and then even more for playing inside events. So part of that, you're getting something just for showing up to use on the prize wall. And the prize walls are going to be your ability to choose your own prizing, right? Because I know not everybody, like I go out to my garage. So just little story about me and my home. I have a 2-story garage. The second story is all board games, tokens for board games, and a 4-foot minimum stack of playmats. I don't need more playmats. I have enough, right? With the jobs that I've had and the number of games that I've played, I have too many. So even if I get a playmat for attending the event, I don't then have to think, okay, well, how many more playmats am I going to walk out with because I reached this threshold or this? I can go to the prize wall with the tickets that I've earned from playing in the main event and say, I would rather have this thing, and I'm not going to say what that thing is because I don't want to give you any hints as to some of the stuff we're doing. But yes, I can go and kind of choose my own prizing, which I think is a huge boon for players that are looking for something new and different and not just the same. I show up, I get a card, I do well, I get a card, and that's it.
That's fair. So I'm going to jump a little bit ahead in questions just because we're already talking about it before we go back to the start. You've mentioned the prize wall tickets and how there's going to be different prizes at different values. Will they be transferable? Will I be able to use prize wall tickets from season 1? No.
I did that once with another game, and it was one of the worst OP experiences ever. I don't think the players all hated it, but some of them did, because I know that when, an event kicked off and a player had accrued more tickets than everybody else, they went and just bought basically all of a single item off the wall, and it was gone for the rest of the weekend.
Okay.
That's just a bad experience for everybody, but it's also difficult for us, and I want to make my life as easy as possible while still doing what I need to do to make all of you happy, but we can't even begin to predict what needs to be sent to each event because we don't know how many tickets people are going to be bringing to the event, right? So tickets will be spent at the event that they're at, and I think it's actually kind of cool. I've seen this with, other prize walls that I've done with other companies. People will actually start sleeving their prize wall tickets because they think that it's a cool thing, and it's like how they show which events they've been to. And I actually think that that's kind of a fun thing, which wouldn't work if tickets were just used at every single event, because then they'd be the same, look and feel throughout.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So you briefly brought it up, and I think I agree on there. After a certain amount of time, you get enough playmats, and you're just like, I don't need more playmats. But there are some very strange people out there that love having essentially a soundproofing of an entire house worth of playmats. And one of the questions we did get from the community where I was asking is, will we be seeing participation playmats coming?
I am not going to fully answer that question because I don't want to give everything away, but you will be getting more for participation than you are this year at the regional level.
I mean, reading between the lines and guessing is that, and I think if I was doing it the way I'm doing it is because participation mats are cool, but not everyone wants them or likes them because, like you say, you have a garage full of them. And there are people who love having these playmats. And also, when it comes to trying to organize the events, you don't know whether there's going to be 50 players turn up, 200 players turn up. So how many playmats do you send to your your TO who's running the event? But if there was a playmat, say, on the prize wall, that was a participation mat which people could go and spend their prize tickets on if they wanted to, or spend it on promos, whatever else is on there, signed photos of Josh, posters of Levi, other things that come out from chat on that. They would then don't have to have that playmat. And so, like, yeah, that having a participation mat as a prize wall prize makes a lot more sense to me rather than part of everyone gets one.
That's fair, but what I will also say is, ¿por qué no los dos? Right? We could give a variety of options for playmats, and it's not just necessarily one style at each event.
Yeah.
Prize walls, as you said, have been done in other games. We had one at the first Worlds in Vegas for the first Hero League Championship, and some of the community have felt that they have been lackluster in their prizing. Will we be seeing some? Will we see some hard to get items or some exclusive items like an uncut challenger deck that we could get redeemed? Can you give us any kind of preview as to what we can expect on the wall?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that you guessed it already. But playmats of my face, signed posters of Levi, those are the two big ticket items, right? No, there will be a larger variety of items. I'm not going to get into the details of what all we're going to be doing because I want that to be exciting when we announce it in our articles. But there will be things that I want, that Levi wants. Like, right, we're gamers. We like playing games. We know what we want. And that is what we have requested for the prize wall.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, there will be some, in my opinion, some really cool items on the prize walls.
Just so that Kai can get it answered, is there anything on your scope for the younger side of our players to have like a junior league like what Pokemon has?
There isn't currently, because we just don't have the numbers for it.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get to a point where that is something that we can do and should do, but where we stand right now, it sadly just doesn't make sense.
No, that's fair. Also, I guess the other thing on the prizing is, and again, this is probably going to be can't say, but I'll ask the question anyway. Will there be region-specific prizing, i.e., will we get a specific EU promo compared to a specific OCE promo, compared to a specific like US promo, so that there's some sort of trade value between the two, and I was at this event, so I got this specific promo kind of thing.
So kind of yes, kind of no.
Mm-hmm.
We will be changing the promos throughout the year, which will mean that essentially the way that it's planned out is some regions will get a specific promo that others won't get. That doesn't mean that we have 3 regions that we're working with, right? The US, EU, and Oceania, right? So there might be a card that you get that Oceania doesn't get, and vice versa. So there is that opportunity, but we made sure that for just about every single promo that we do, they at least hit 2 of the 3 regions. So it's not fully locked down, but as balanced as we can make it.
That's fair.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Any more questions from you about prize walls and other things like that, Richard?
No, I think that covers sort of the more. I suppose the other thing from the more competitive side, looking at sort of, I guess, regionals and up, is the other plans for the stuff around the event to make these things into events, and sort of how you've been working with local TO.
We have that a little bit later down, don't we?
What's that? Sorry.
I was wondering if we had that a little bit later on down like how they're going to be events, but we can talk about that now. Yeah,
so I was just trying to do all the sort of regional up stuff, and then we can move on to the sort of LGS stuff. But yeah, I guess it's the sort of event nature of these regionals, where at the moment they're just sort of big tournaments rather than events, which I think is what I would like from it, and I think obviously what you're trying to aim for, and how we're going to move. Obviously, again, details are already scarce at this point, but how are you going to try and make those into events next year?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're doing, obviously, we have some amazing tournament organizers that we work with now, with one too many Seans, if you ask me. I think everybody that we're working with right now is a Sean.
Yeah.
But we've got some great TOs. We've been working with them on, how to promote more side events and more engaging side events, because I don't want just standard constructed every single event that we go to, right? We've got cool things that we've done as a company, like the Briarwoods. Hopefully, you will see more things along those lines where there's more casual, like laid back ways to play. So side events will be one of the big things that we do for that. We've also been talking a lot about doing gunslinging, not necessarily just UVS people coming and gunslinging. And then, doing other things that I'm not now, but things that are more for a collector than a player. And that's all that I'll say for now, because this is one of the things, if we can get this to happen, which looking positive, I'm going to be very excited to talk about.
Could you imagine gunslinging against like Kyle Phillips and he's playing Denki Kaminari because his character? Because when he was there for the first Worlds, Ty from Ty House of Cards did teach him to play, and that would be such a cool aspect to bring to the game of like getting voice actors, getting the people behind behind IPs and stuff to come in and play the game and go, yeah, we can have a chat whilst we play the game, and you can tell me how much you love my character.
Right. Yep. And those are some of the we're looking at, is things more along those lines to get people excited to just show up.
If you had, say, with the solo and stuff, you had Alec, the voice actor of Sun Jin Woo, coming to an event, you're going to get solo leveling fans just coming to meet him. And then you can also go, well, while you're here, why not have a demo?
Right.
So with the fact that regionals are going to feel more like events, are we going to see more destination, like convention events, like with Level Up or with Gen Con and within the UK, like the UK Games Expo? Are we going to see more of those kind of like collaborations?
No.
Ooh.
That might not be what people expected to hear with this. I'm not saying that we're not going to do things at those events, but they will not be regionals. Yes, and this is intentional because let's talk about, Level Up Expo. Being there, working with them was awesome. I love the group that we worked with there. I think the event went very well. We had a good space for it, but it was an $80 regional versus a $30 regional being held elsewhere. So we will be doing regionals as standalone events. They will be happening at their own hotels, ballrooms, convention centers, wherever it's needed. I mean, for smaller regions, maybe even a really nice looking game store. But we are still going to be going to conventions like the UK Games Expos, the PAXs, the Gen Cons of the world, right? But those will be different. Those are not going to necessarily be competitive events that are awarding you champion points, but events that you can go and, spend a day of your 4-day event sitting in a chair and hanging out and playing a game and getting some cool prizes, doing more prize wall stuff. Things that are more focused around like team events, so other formats, things like that. So those events will still exist. We will still be at those types of events. It just will not be as a regional tournament.
Yeah, they seem like the sort of a preview event feels like the perfect thing for those sorts of venues. Like like a pre-release, like you can have like one of your pre-releases at UK Games Expo or Gen Con or whatever, right?
Yep. Yeah, we want to do things that are a little more laid back, a little bit more fun, a little bit more outside the box at those types of events.
So seeing you open the door talking about teams, will regionals always be a standard format, or will we see more spotlight retro teams as an actual competitive format?
So what I will say is the plan right now, the current plan is to focus on standard constructed, but I think that there definitely is room to do something else at the regional level and above. The thing that we just need to balance internally, because again, having come from other OP programs and talking about doing different formats and different structures, it's very difficult to find a good balance. Like if Worlds is going to be standard and you're doing half of your events through the year that are not standard format, you've got people earning invites for a format they maybe don't play. Maybe they don't care about standard. but now they won their invite and they have to go play in a format they don't know or understand. So we are keeping it even for now. We're keeping it just standard across the board. But this is something that we have been talking about, we have been looking into, and how we can balance it and give people a little bit more without feeling like we're taking away from them when it comes to the final event of the year.
I think just knowing that retro competitive play is on your radar will make a lot of people, a lot of the old heads, very happy.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of people internally that like it too, so those conversations are not happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those things of no plans yet, but the door is open.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, as you mentioned, last year's articles didn't really talk about local play, and this one was quite heavy in local play. So let's move on to local play and start off with the big issue that's come from this season. Mechanically unique promos. They were gone, we were happy, and then we got the Tekken 8 promos, and everyone's like, we hate mechanically unique promos. Then we saw them, and everyone's like, no, I need to get these gorgeous mechanically unique promos. Are they back, or is it just something that will happen every so often?
So this is a thing that I let people know when I first started here. This has been an internal conversation so far, so you will be the first people outside of the company to hear me say this, but I have zero plans to do mechanically unique cards for any organized play events. The reasoning behind that is, well, I don't know if that was a sigh of relief or not.
It is.
I hope so. But yeah, the reasoning behind that is it's a feel bad no matter how you do it and no matter how well you do it. Because somebody's going to miss out on this card that could be a staple card that they now just don't have or have to go and buy when everybody else is selling it at a premium because they know how good it is. Like, it's not a thing that I will be doing for organized play promos.
That's a popular opinion with me. That's a popular opinion with chat. That is very, very cool, and that is something that we're very happy to see. Just alt arts or XRs are just very cool cards that we already have. Mechanically promos put a lot of pressure to perform at events.
Right. I want you to show up to get the cool cards to bling out your deck, not to just give you an advantage over everybody who couldn't play in that tournament.
Yeah. I mean, like, that was always the thing, right? Is the feeling like you're getting, even though like they may be on a redemption thing, like it was always just, it just makes it as feels bad. And I think everyone was kind of glad they went.
It's also the issue trying to get 4 of them, because who wants just 1 or 2 of a promo? You need to have like the 4 to put in a deck.
Right.
So, talk us through the scramble. How did that come to life? What was the inspiration towards this very cool new play oriented event?
So, I mean, exactly that. I've already kind of mentioned it a little bit. Like, it is for those new players. It's for people to have an opportunity to play in a tournament without feeling like they need to get sweaty. I mean, we know this game is not the easiest game to just pick up and play. It's very deep, it's very involved, and it's wonderful for it. But a new player coming in, and this is me. I think, the first time I played Universes was about 2 years ago. I was introduced as, my hero characters and whatnot. And the game was super fun, crunchy enough that I like it, because I do like my crunchy games. But I know for me, being a gamer, I was not going to go and build a deck and show up at a competitive event because I know I would have gotten crushed. Right? I was new enough to the game. It was not a thing that I would have been driven to do. The scramble is intended to be that next step. It's supposed to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more casual. The prizing for it isn't necessarily you win, you get the thing. It's up to the store to decide how that's going to go, right? There is going to be a winner style promo, but we're going to give stores the opportunity to say, you know what, that's a door prize. Or we're going to give one of those out for the greatest sportsman through the event, right? If you were just the nicest player, you're going to get one of those cards.
Most interesting deck.
Or yeah, things along those lines. We want to give the stores the opportunity to do what makes the most sense for them. So for the stores that want to draw in new players, maybe they're doing things like the, most creative deck or the door prize. But for stores that have a competitive group playing, sure, they'll use it as a winner card, and that's fine. But the idea with these cards is that they are going to be very thematic to the set, to what's currently being played, not necessarily competitive staples, right? The idea is to still, select cards that people are going to have fun with and want to use. But I don't want the two of you thinking I need this, alt art version of this card or this, unique foil of this card because it's the best card in the set. And now I'm going to go trounce all these new players. I want those new players to come in, and maybe it's a thing you decide, I want to go because it's fun, I'm going to use a different deck, and I'm just going to have a good time. Or you decide it's not for you. And that's okay that it's not necessarily for you, because you have the rest of the program to work with, right? You got the whole competitive side of things. So yeah, that's the idea with this one, is to give those new players just a friendly, welcoming, more open, casual thing to attend, and to just grind out some more games.
I think that's brilliant. Getting stores do it. So if they see like 1 week someone's coming in and they're try-harding because it was a winner promo, they're like, okay, next time we're just going to change it up, because I know from personal experience with Keyforge, if one person wins all the local events, people stop showing up. So if you change the criteria for pricing, like, are we going to give the promo to the person that plays the most assets in the deck? It changes how people are going to be thinking about their decks, and competitive players will like it. Intermediate players will get to experience more card interactions, and new players get to just play the decks they love and learn the game, because they don't really need to focus on getting these amazing promos. They just want to have fun and learn the game.
Yep. And that's what we want. We want more people doing that at stores. Like, I love when people just buy the game and play it at home. That's great. But one of my main focuses is building out the community to make our community just bigger and better. Mm-hmm. If I show up at a store and there are 3 people playing a game that I enjoy, I might join them. But if it's the same 3 people all the time, it's not as exciting as if we're pulling in and that 3 people grows to 6 and then to 8. And now I've got more people that love the thing that I love and that I get to hang out with. And I've now got a friend group and a community growing at a store. Right. So that's where we're really trying to focus this event, is building that player base and that community in the stores.
Yeah. So I was going to say, we just jump in with a couple of little questions from chat here, just on the LGS stuff. So LGS question: will UK promos and championship stuff arrive on time for next year's plans? Most this year have been delayed by a week or two, and the pricing has felt a bit lackluster. And then also from a demo perspective, are they, LGS is going to get updated demo playmats, marketing, and demo kits to hand out, etc.
So to answer the first question, we have been making some changes internally as to how OP is viewed as part of the company. And because of that, that will help with shipping and getting things to people on time. Obviously, there are things that we can't control. If a boat sinks, we can't help that. But we are doing everything, again, from years of my experience working with teams that the OP team didn't really interact with as much before, working with them and them understanding kind of where we're coming from, what our needs are. We're going to be catching up and keeping up. And then the second part of that question, remind me what that was.
About demos, so like demo kits, playmats, marketing, all that sort of stuff, just to sort of, again, draw in new players.
Right. Yeah, those are things that we are going to continue doing. We have seen a lot of positive results from doing the demo kits specifically. So that is a thing we will continue to do. We will continue to get those to stores and get players engaged and involved in the game in that way.
One last question from chat is, when you look at the other regions, they're quite diverse into where their events are held. Whereas if you look at the EU, we currently have the northeast of England. Are we going to see a bit more diversity into where events are held? And will we be seeing mainland Europe regionals?
That is the goal. I will say, though, just like looking at our numbers, we do need to be very conscious of that. And when it comes to mainland Europe, there are a couple pockets, but if we can't find somebody who can or wants to run an event out there that I, would trust to be a tournament organizer for our game, that might make it difficult. So that is the goal, though. We want to spread out a little bit more than we have been, and not just in Europe, but in the US as well.
Another quick question that's just popped in from chat. Will we see an increase in local championships and those kind of level events at a local level? Because getting one like every couple of months isn't the best at the minute.
So they will be spread out. There will be one of them per new set release. So cadence-wise, it will be pretty similar every couple months, every few months, just based on when sets are releasing. But after talking to some of the stores that we work closely with, after talking to our LGS team internally, with what we're planning for the LCs, more stores are going to be interested in them because I'll just say it. I'm not going to give you all the details, but our pricing is just better.
Mm-hmm.
So with the pricing being better, more stores will be enticed to take it because they know that players will be more enticed to come. So that will just create more events. And one of the things, again, no exact details on it right now, that'll come later, but we are going to be extending those events out a little bit more, providing a larger window for stores to run them. So it's not going to be quite as locked down as it has felt, and definitely was earlier this year.
Yeah, my next question was going to be around that, and that will start to have more control over choosing dates for events and maximizing attendance.
Yes, they will. I was actually just going back and forth with Levi before we jumped into this call. We want to provide the stores the opportunity to do that, to schedule them when it makes most sense. And when it comes to stores that might have a regional coming up in their area, they might want to schedule it right around that regional because more people will be in town. For stores that don't have a regional in their area, they might want to schedule it on one of the days of the regional and pull up the live stream and have the live stream playing while players are sitting and waiting between games. So we want to give them the opportunity to take their store level thing and almost turn it into more of an event as well. That's really one of the focuses, is getting people excited to show up for things that are outside of just the game.
Yeah, that would be very cool to. We do have side events at Patriots for regionals, but if you could show up on a Friday and go, yeah, we've got a Star Championship, and then we have regionals, and so it goes, yeah, you've got one last chance to test your deck.
Yep. And again, that'll be up to the stores to decide what they do, but working with a local TO gives them that opportunity.
So during the article and with the video, you mentioned nationals and how they kind of just felt like regionals with the World's invites. Was there ever a conversation about changing nationals to be more significant rather than just immediately dissolving it into a new system?
Yes, that has been part of the conversation the whole time, is still part of the conversations. Nationals are not gone forever. Nationals, I shouldn't say that. Nationals might be gone forever, but a tier of event like the Nationals are not gone forever. Right? So there are a few different reasons behind this. We touched on them a little bit, but like you said, they felt just like slightly bigger regionals. They also were very imbalanced. I mean, the regionals are as well. They're a bit imbalanced just based on the number of players in a region. But when you think of the 3 nationals even happening this year, there's one happening in Oceania, Australia. That's a pretty big country, right? They take up a lot of space. Nowhere near as much as the US, North America, right? We have a nationals as well. And then there's a nationals that really only encompasses UK players, which you're pretty small, right? So the way that we want to look at these nationals events as we move forward is not having them be nationals or necessarily be called nationals, but have them be an event tier that makes sense and encompasses an area the way that it should. Because having a US nationals with 500 people versus an Oceania nationals with 30 to 50 people, one of them feels like a nationals. the other doesn't as much, right?
Yeah.
So we want to really figure out how to balance that and make it make more sense, and probably end up giving it a new title. But the other reason behind it is I really, really want us to focus on this regionals being an event thing and perfect that before we overcomplicate the structure. Because, again, the structure for this year, nothing necessarily wrong with it, but it is kind of difficult to figure out and get into. And I wanted it to be more straightforward, be more open, welcoming, and understandable for new players, existing players. I just want you to look at it and be like, okay, I get how this works. And adding a new or another tier of event just confuses that a little bit more than I think we needed to for this reset year and the refresh year.
Mm-hmm.
If we can try and get a little bit more information about like the reworking in NATS and stuff, like that was something I wasn't expecting, and my brain's now popping off of it. Is that the kind of event, like area encompassing, that we could see things like a national level teams, a national level retro? Because those were things we had in the past that that players have been asking for to come back. Teams, NATS is something everyone's been really wanting to come back.
Yeah, that is not off the table. And that is all I will say on that.
Tom Berry, we've already covered that. Basically, we'll get information about Worlds 2024 when and if they're able to talk about it. But from the way Josh presents it, it sounds pretty hype.
I'm excited for it.
So we've talked about regionals themselves. How many events will regions be getting?
So I'm not going to get into the exact breakout of which regions are getting number of events and whatnot. But what I will say right now, before we get too into the weeds in future articles again, we plan on doing about one event a month. But with, points calculations and whatnot, we will need to take off for a month or two before Worlds to make sure that we don't have too many last minute points coming in, because we want to give people time to say, or to review everything and make sure everything's correct. Because, we all know technology is not perfect and there might be some things that need to be adjusted at the end of each season. So you can do the math if you want. Most months with a 1 or 2 month breaks. Yeah, I'm not going to say the number, but about one a month with a 1 to 2 month break. You can do the math.
Roughly similar to Star Championships, one a set.
So 17, I think is the number, 17. Right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wait, about one a month? With a 1 to 2 month break. That's not 17.
That's
how
not
many
17.
How many months do you guys have in the UK?
Yeah. If it's 1 a month, that means basically it's going to be basically 2/3. So we're looking at about 8 events.
Or maybe a couple more than that. But who's to say?
Yeah. There is a number of events next year.
There's going to be a number of events that coincide possibly
between 8 and 12. Let's say that. Between 8 and 12, maybe really close to
Is that for each region, or is that going
that is total through the year. That is total through the year. So each region this year is getting 3 events to end up with 9 total regionals through the year, and then the nationals happening at the end, right? So it's going to be close to the same, but the spread is going to be very different because we're not going to do this quarterly, 1 week, 1 week, 1 week in 3 different regions. It's going to be one a month. So for the people that do want to travel, it might be a little bit easier to do that.
That kind of answers what my next question was, because this regional season, we're having 3 events with 3 different card pools that players have got access to, because NA has AOT, then Oceania has Dark Arc, and then we have Tekken. And if it's just 1 a month for each region, we're not probably going to see a situation like that again because it's more spaced out.
Correct. You won't, but I will just state for this year, obviously this is happening in a month. Cards are still legal the day that they release. So there will be 3 different formats, essentially, right? Same format, but 3 different sets or sets of cards being released that can be used.
So to get to just quickly get this from the horse's mouth, my friend wants to play Devil Jin the day of the Store Championship. So walk in, pick up the participation prize, and play it on the day. Is he allowed to do that?
According to the rules, that's perfectly fine, yeah.
Awesome. I will make sure he knows, like, he is very excited for that card.
Sweet.
So yeah, I guess do a couple more quick chat questions. So one sort of back to more locally stuff was the redemption side of things. So obviously, you know, alongside local play promos, there's obviously the redemption store, like the point system there. Like, is that going to be changing much? Is there more coming on that side of it? Or
nope, no major changes to the redemption system. That is not something that I, on the OP side, really have a lot to do with. I love that it exists, but that is not changing with the OP changes.
So with the scramble being geared towards new players and regionals being geared towards the more experienced players, the article in the video did really feel that it's more focused towards the casual player and bringing in new players and keeping the new players. Is this year going to have things that the competitive players can latch onto and really want to sink their teeth into as well, either in prizing or in the events? Outside of regionals.
I really don't feel like we've taken anything away from competitive players. I think honestly, with the local championship still existing at the store level, the regionals, and then the world championship, with the update to the prizing that we're going to have at each of those events, to the prize walls, which is again more ways to just interact with the game while you're at those types of events. I don't think we've taken anything away from competitive players. I think that we've only added to something that we already know that you enjoy doing, playing the game competitively, right? So I feel like you guys have a bit more than you will have had this year, next year, just because of the things that we've added to those tiers of events. But yes, we've definitely added a lot more for our new players, but that's because there wasn't really much for them at all. So it might feel like we're focusing so heavily on new player acquisition and getting more people to just show up to game stores. And that's true in a sense, but it just feels more skewed because there really was not much for it at all.
It's
right?
more of an equality start situation. Just because new players are getting more doesn't mean that competitive players are getting less. We're getting the same.
Correct.
It just feels like they're getting more because it's all new stuff.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of playgroups for whom, like, their weeklies or their scrambles are just going to end up sweaty because that's what their playgroups like. You know, they want to play competitive and get more reps in, right? So there's just then the option they can just
away as scrambles being away for competitive players to take a break and just show up with things like Anya Forger or Joker Mill or just these decks that they know they're never going to play competitively, but they've theory crafted and never had a chance to play because the last 3 years have all been competitive focused, and players are actually going to be able to just kind of relax and enjoy the game a little bit more, like get back in touch with the reasons why they love this game, rather than having this unhealthy competitive focus that has had some players basically kind of spiral and have a little bit breakdowns when they don't top, when they don't actually get that results orientated play. Or I could also just be over-examining what players are doing.
You might be, but you made me think of something, and I'm throwing out the challenge now.
Ooh.
Go to a store scramble with one of the Clash decks from AOT and win it. You better let me know when you win it with that deck, because I want to see that player that, I don't care how competitive you are, you bring one of those decks to one of these events and you end up winning the thing. I need to hear about this because that's exciting. That's awesome.
That is an awesome challenge. That is really cool.
I mean, I think someone out in the community's got a bounty, probably something you can't interact with from a company, but bounty on doing, I think, top cutting a regional with one of those characters.
Top cut. Okay. We won't get too much into that because, I don't think that's something UBS would A, want to know about, or B, if they know about it. Yeah, exactly. We did have one other chat. I don't know if this is in your purview, but last year there was a collaboration between TCG Player and UBS where we got the Godzilla -1. Could we possibly see more of that in the future? And will it be more internationally friendly? Like, You do Gen Con promos? Could we possibly see UK Games Expo promos? Could we see collaboration between Card Goblin, which is our biggest single vendors, the same as TCG with the Godzilla -1?
I can't speak for every promo that we do when every collaboration that we do, because that's not an OP thing necessarily. But what I can say, and what I will say is, like we're doing with the regionals, trying to make sure that cards are not mechanically unique, and making sure they're not mechanically unique, but trying to make sure that we get them to more than just a single region, will be the case for other events like the Gen Cons, UK Games Expos. I want to make sure that people are excited to come to the events to get things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get.
No, that makes perfect sense. There was one last question that I completely overlooked, but it's a very good point from our point of view. Will Worlds always be held in the US? Because as international players, it can get quite expensive, and especially for Oceania, will it move around at any point in the future?
So what I can say on that is I hope so. So with my time with my last job, we finally did that. We found a way to do it for a couple of our games, and we were going to run a couple world championships in Europe, specifically in Europe in 2020. COVID kind of murdered that, and we couldn't do those events anymore. But that is a thing that I have been looking into, will continue to look into. It's difficult to promise anything because of the disparity between the player bases, right? Yeah. If we run an event in the UK or in Europe, it's going to be a lot more expensive for a lot more people to run the event there. Doesn't mean it's off the table, but what that is me challenging you to get more people playing the game in your region so that I have more ammo to come and say, hey, it's worth spending the extra money. They're doing great. They're supporting the game that we want to support them back. Right?
I mean, you guys are doing that. I mean, there's a store near me that gave up the game in 2022. It started supporting the game on a more casual basis because people asked for it. We've had a lot more people talking in Discord from Germany and other areas, basically saying they're getting back into the game because they're seeing OPs improving. They're seeing that these brand new IPs that are coming in are more diverse than just anime. So it's quite easy for us to get people or get this trust back that UVS kind of lost in 2022 because of all these positive changes. I've said it a lot in recorded videos and streams. You guys are on an unprecedented win streak at the minute with all these changes and all these promos and everything that's going on.
Knock on wood.
The mechanically unique promos kind of dips a little bit, but I'm still going to count that as a win because of how they look. And if this win streak keeps going, it's going to be quite easy for a lot of players and a lot of people that are like, we don't have trust in the company to go, I got a little bit of trust in the company again.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we want to do, right? We want to make sure that you know that we do care. Like I've said it a bunch of times, I'm a gamer. I just pulled Levi over to my team. Everybody knows Levi. He's a gamer as well. Like, we want to see what we would want to see for a game we can compete in, right? We want to try to give you those great experiences. We want to see communities grow, because when I go to my LGS, I want to see a bunch of people playing the game I want to be playing, right? So yeah, the challenge exists. Continue booming, pull new players in, and give me all of the ammo that I need to come and say, we need an event in Europe or in the UK.
My personal last question, it wasn't on the list because it's something that I asked when I was at the summit in Vegas as well, and I think I've asked it quite a lot, is will we see in-person commentary for Oceania and Europe? Because as cool as the webcam stuff is, when you see the NA events and they get like the post-stream interviews and you got the people there, it just feels a lot more hype. And one of the things I would love to see happening in the EU and stuff like that is when you get these very crazy decks like the Midoriya decks or the Alpha 1 decks that we had last time, just getting to talk to the players afterwards and find out why they made these choices, why they built these decks. I know from personal experience being like the only person to ever top events with Dabby 1, it's inspiring to see these off-meta characters do well at events and see new players come in and go, I was inspired by this really cool deck that goes off-meta. I would love to see get that energy out there for the other regions as well.
So live streaming is a whole other discussion that I will touch on briefly. For the remainder of this year, there won't be a whole lot of changes to how we're doing it. But with the change in how events are structured next year, with them being more monthly than boom, 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 3 weeks in a row, the plan is to do in-person live streams for those events. But that is specifically for the 2025 season, not necessarily changing anything for this year. This year, I didn't want to throw too many wrenches into things this year because I didn't want to create feel bads for people who were already playing in the competitive cycle before I started and then say, hey, all the stuff you did, it wasn't as good as you thought because we've changed things. So we're not changing a lot to the structure, to how we're promoting events, how we're supporting events this year.
Yeah, and I guess that also gives you this sort of breathing space to get next year right? Without
that's the goal.
Yeah. So I think that sort of covers all our questions.
Unless we want to touch on what you've put in the group chat.
Well, I didn't want to keep Josh for too long. I don't know if you've got to shoot off or
no. Let's chat.
So,
I saw it pop up in the chat.
We can talk about breaking news, I guess.
So, Josh,
all right.
What is the Challenger Series format?
Exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, this is another way that we have been talking about internally for getting new players excited about the game and engaging with the game, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Unmodified Challenger Series decks that specific certain stores, certain events that we do. I'm just going to use Gen Con as the example because it's already passed and I don't have to think about it for another year, but it's something we might do at Gen Con. Mm-hmm. And again, might not be a thing that you're interested in playing, but somebody who's just demoed the game and picked up a new Challenger Series deck for, I guess, talking about events happening later this year. Maybe they buy a Star Trek Challenger Series, and now at the event, we're going to run a 24-player Challenger Series tournament. That's something cool and exciting for them to jump into and play and not have to worry about deck building, but just play the game in a little bit more meaningful way than just doing a demo.
Oh yeah, no, that's amazing. It's one of the things that I said about challenges was it's a missed opportunity to do things like challenger leagues, which is the same kind of thing.
Yep.
You just have this unchanged challenge deck, and I absolutely love this idea because you're going to get things like Midoriya 6 or Deku on the Move as he's known. Sung Jin Woo, the Star Trek cards, which with like Boimer's diplomacy cards, are going to be very circular decks that need their own kits, and they're going to have a chance to shine without having to actually make changes on it. Go, oh, is it competitive? It's like, no, this is my soul leveling deck. It is a deck that requires its own kit, and luckily, that is what I have to play.
Yep, and that's the gist of it. It's designed to be a little bit more laid back, something easy because we have new stores jumping in all the time, and it's something for them to get their players to actually show up to an event and start playing. And like I said earlier in the chat, like building that community. We just want the community in their tails. Oh yeah. Of course, that's what we want for our stores more than anything, right? If the stores are happy, we're happy. So if you're at the store is happy. You're hopefully happy because you're engaging with your friends. We're happy that people are playing the game and supporting their stores. It's just a win-win-win.
And don't forget, those Erin challenge decks are gonna get nothing but harder to find. So if you want to play it at a Challenger Series event, you're gonna have to pick one up now.
And that's not me trying to sell it. No. So, yeah. Not going to disagree with you, but
I literally just had a question that popped into my head and it disappeared. Oh, there we go. It came back. So, the last thing before we do wrap up and let you go. I know I keep saying last thing, but deck lists and data with the fact that events are going to be month to month. will local events require debt lists so you can get more data for bans and erratas before competitive seasons?
The expectation is that all competitive level events will require deck lists.
That personally, that's a great change for me because it's one of the things that most people complain about. As I said, all events have been like weekend. So all your competitive data either came from big community events like Tam and David's, or from a free weekend stretch, which you can't really interact with.
Yep.
So I have one final question. So it's going to be a really tough question, I'm afraid, and there will be a lot of judgment based on your answer to this question.
Ooh, my answer is 7.
What is your favorite board game?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's an easy question for me.
Okay.
I don't know what people are going to think about it. It has been my favorite game for many years now. It's Imperial Assault.
Okay.
So dungeon crawler. I'm a big Star Wars nerd. I'm a Trek nerd. I'm a Star Wars nerd. I just like space and sci-fi and sci fantasy. You know, like my space operas. But yeah, Imperial Assault will probably always hold that spot.
Yeah.
But I have been playing a game recently that it has challenged Imperial Assault at times. It's called ISS Vanguard.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, you know Vanguard. It makes you
I've not played it, but I saw.
Oh, okay. So it makes me feel like I am the head of like one of the areas of the ship. Like I'm in charge of reconnaissance, and I'm sending my red shirts down to a planet and hoping that they come back home. And I love every aspect of it. It's a very, very good game, very good campaign, but still second place.
No, that's fair. I mean, yeah, those campaign games I've like Descent was the sort of fantasy version of.
Yep.
Yeah, I played a lot of Descent, and like Frosthaven is the current one we've been playing, like our current campaign for over a year now, I think. So
nice.
My last points will be one really last final question that's got nothing to do with OP.
I don't believe you at all.
One recommendation, since you like your space stuff, and it's an IP that myself and Lenoco talk about quite often, is if you do get a chance, check out the anime Outlaw Star. It's grappling spaceships with weapons and guns that fight each other in space and race, and it's very, very cool. And seeing as you said you have picked up the game, you have been learning the game, what are you playing?
Oh, geez. Honestly, so I play a lot of just challengers right out of the box because that's how I've gotten my friends to play. Right? Like my buddy has been playing a bunch of Ash, so I'll play challengers against him. So that's how I engage with most of the people that I play with. But the the deck that I had played most recently for our internal league, it was a Jester deck. And I can't remember the exact number. I think it was 53 damage that Levi had to deal to me because I was just restoring so much and just like recovering my health. I was never going to beat him, but I was just making that game take as long as humanly possible. And I enjoyed it so much.
You're there for a long time, not a good time.
Right. Exactly. But no, I really enjoyed that. I've been dabbling with a new Godzilla deck, new to me, not probably new to most people, but yeah. I'll play a little bit of anything.
If you like stalling out the game and gaining a lot of health so someone has to deal you insane amounts of damage, have you looked at Recovery Girl?
Nope. That's too far even for me. I knew exactly where you're going with it, and I was going to say it before you did, but no, that is too much even for somebody like me.
I see you are a man of culture.
Okay, well, we won't keep you any further, Josh. It's been awesome having you on.
It's been great chatting with you guys.
As a final thing, anything else you wanted to sort of tell the community or shout outs or anything like that?
I mean, I want to tell you everything, all the things right here, right now, but we do have a plan. So just what I will say is continue to watch us, our articles, watch for us on socials. We will be continuing to announce like I said, finishing out this year and then really diving into what 2025 looks like. So keep following us. And I mean, heck, maybe after we announce something else, I'll be chatting with you guys again.
Oh, yeah.
And they can watch me here.
Same, you get the same thing as all UVS employees. It's an open invitation to return whenever you want to talk about anything new. If you just want to talk about the game, if you just want to chat, I know there's some things you can't talk about. Like currently, we're doing top 10 cards from certain standard. That's something you can't really touch on. But anytime you want to come on and just chat about anything, feel free to reach out. It's an open invitation to basically anyone, because I like to give my opinions and Richard likes to smack down my opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds great. And I like to just watch that happen.
Yeah. So, yeah, great having you here, Josh. Great as lovely as always. And yeah, really excited for OP next year, and we'll get you back on as soon as we can.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. And yeah, thanks to everyone in chat for joining along. And obviously, if you're watching the video on YouTube, do all the algorithm things, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, if we have any questions we did miss for Josh, drop them in the comments and we'll send them to Josh and see if we can get some more answers we can get back. We'll catch you on a bit, and bye.